Rumor has it that Kirk Frost and Mendeecees Harris, two of the most talked about stars in love and hip-hop, may have been permanently barred from all major reality TV shows in the game. This isn't just a suspension or backstage drama. It's much more serious, and producers are freaking out, and insiders are leaking information that could bring entire franchises to an end. In other words, something shocking is happening behind the scenes of reality TV that is so explosive that fans never saw it coming. It all began quietly with whispers in the network office hallways and silent nods, but now that it's all coming to light, from covert meetings with network executives to violent confrontations that never should have happened, fans are shocked, cast members are split, and the industry is frantically trying to figure out how to contain the fallout. How did it all go so wrong? Why are longtime stars like Kirk and Mendeecees being erased from the TV map? And is truly the end of their careers, or just the start of a much larger war? Stay tuned, because what's about to happen will blow your mind. In the love and hip-hop universe, Kirk Frost and Mendeecees Harris had always been controversial figures who thrived on drama, fed off the chaos, and knew exactly how to keep the cameras rolling. However, this time something felt different. Something darker was brewing behind the scenes, and soon it was impossible to ignore the rumors that started with a missed appearance. Kirk was supposed to film a family segment with Rashida, but he didn't show up. Producers said he called out last minute because of emotional stress, but insiders suggested it was something more serious just days before Kirk and Mindy were spotted fighting at a private cast party. It wasn't just a normal argument. It turned into a full-fledged brawl that got so bad that security had to separate them. Some say fists were nearly thrown, while others say the network tried to hide it because they didn't want another public scandal. Hip-hop was already feeling pressure from fans who wanted new plots and cleaner drama. But Kirk and Mendeecees weren't assisting, so both men started making bold demands. Kirk insisted on maintaining control over his story and refused to film scenes that portrayed him negatively. Mendeecees, on the other hand, allegedly told one of the showrunners, "You don't get to tell my story unless I approve every word." This new rebellious attitude didn't sit well with the executives. One producer, speaking anonymously, told a blog, "They've always." During a break, Rashida, who had always stood up for Mendeecees in public, told a crew member, "I can't keep covering for him. If he wants to destroy his image, that's on him. It's been difficult, but now it's like they want to run the entire show." Tensions quickly escalated, storylines were cut short, filming schedules were thrown into chaos, and other cast members became frustrated. Fans noticed that odd scenes involving Kirk and Mendeecees started to vanish, and episodes that had previously been full of their drama suddenly featured new plotlines. People began asking online, "Where's Kirk? What happened to Mendeecees?" Theories were circulating on social media, with some speculating that they were leaving the show voluntarily and others thinking the quiet suspension was already in place. However, nobody anticipated what transpired next during a. According to an anonymous source who witnessed the exchange, Kirk Mendeecees and two executive producers got into a heated argument during a closed-door meeting at the network office. Kirk claimed that the network was manipulating his image and threatening to release unedited footage, and DC supported him, saying that he was tired of being the antagonist. When one producer attempted to defuse the situation, Kirk reportedly slammed his fist on the table and yelled, "This show made me the bad guy, and now you want to erase me." Security was called, but not before a fight broke out. Kirk stormed out of the building, followed by Mendeecees, who would not speak again. Later that day, a company-wide email was sent stating that both men were placed on an indefinite production hold. However, that wasn't the end. A leaked clip of the original fight between Kirk and Mendeecees at the cast party appeared online. It was grainy and obviously recorded on a phone, but you could see everything. The shouting, the pushing, and the moment Kirk tried to lunge forward before being restrained. Fans were shocked when the video went viral, and within hours, hashtags like #Perksman and #Meltdown began trending on Twitter. Some fans supported Kirk, claiming that he had been pushed too far, while others blamed Mendeecees for being toxic and controlling. The backlash was that advertisers immediately started to pull back, with one major sponsor reportedly pausing all future deals with the franchise. The network went into full damage control, realizing their worst fear. Chaos had spilled out into the real world. Just 2 weeks after the video was leaked, a legal notice was quietly filed in court, revealing the most shocking twist yet. The network was terminating all current and future contracts with Kirk and Mendeecees due to multiple violations of conduct, threats against staff, and behavior that damaged the network's reputation. To put it simply, they were banned from Love and Hip Hop as well as from all affiliated reality TV productions. Internet fans were shocked to learn that Kirk and Mendeecees, two of the most well-known figures in reality TV, had been completely blacklisted. There was a lot of conjecture, with some claiming it was a setup and others saying it was long overdue. Even former cast members began to weigh in. Carly Red shared a mysterious story on Instagram that read, "Karma always comes around." Lil Scrappy tweeted, "Some folks forget cameras aren't the only thing recording." Kirk and Menk remained silent and did not make a public statement, but people close to them said that they were both angry and taken by surprise. Kirk felt deceived, especially after all he had done for the franchise, and was reportedly considering filing a lawsuit, claiming the network had taken advantage of him for ratings and cast him aside the moment he became inconvenient. However, behind the scenes, things were even more intense, with Rashida caught in the middle, who was said to be devastated not only by Kirk's career setback but also by the way it was destroying their family. Yandindi was also having trouble. She had spent years supporting Mans, believing in his development and sticking by him through his struggles as a parent in prison and the media. But now that the industry was turning its back on him, she felt the weight of his downfall. According to insiders, she broke down in tears during a private call with her manager, saying, "I don't know how to fix this." One friend shared, "He's angry all the time, and it's like he's shutting everyone out." The storm really started to build because, despite the emotional fallout, Kirk and Menz weren't prepared to leave quietly. They started calling independent producers, podcast hosts, and even reality TV competitors because they were determined to share their side of the story in its unadulterated and raw form. According to a source close to the situation, they're planning something big and want to expose what really goes on behind the scenes. As the drama developed, the industry started to buzz with new, darker details that suggested Kirk and Mindy were not just fighting for their careers, but also fighting to expose a system that had used them and then discarded them. They weren't the first reality TV stars to experience this kind of treatment, but they were the first to come to light. New layers of secrets began to surface, including whispered conversations, private direct messages, and even a deleted voice note that someone managed to recover. We were determined to ensure they were the last. It all started with the leaked voice note, which was first written off as just another rumor. However, it quickly became apparent that this was more than just gossip. The recording, which was sent to a select group of reliable insiders, showed a producer talking openly about how Kirk and Minnie were treated in the last months of their involvement with the show. The producer said in a voice dripping with disdain, "We use them for ratings and then toss them when they're no longer useful." Kirk has been a liability for years, and men, don't get me started on him, have too much baggage. As the voice note went viral, fans rallied behind Kirk and Mendeecees. Some viewers had long suspected that the reality TV industry was manipulative, but hearing the unvarnished truth made it impossible to ignore that this is bigger than just Kirk and Mendeecees. They already suspected that Kirk and Mindy were never truly in control of their stories. Their rise to fame had been engineered, their fall had been meticulously planned, and the producers had used their personal struggles, feuds, and romances all for the sake of ratings. The network rushed to contain the damage by issuing a statement denying the validity of the leaked recording and claiming that the voices had been doctored, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. The public's perception of reality TV changed overnight, and viewers started to question everything they had watched for years. Another fan tweeted, "This is about all the people who get exploited for the sake of entertainment. We need to know what really goes on behind the scenes." Sources close to Mendeecees disclosed that he had been meeting with several well-known attorneys in preparation for a legal battle that could rock the very foundations of the industry. They were determined to expose the truth about reality TV and overthrow the system that had exploited them, and they weren't going to let their careers be destroyed without a fight. If anything, the discovery of the voice note only fueled their fire. They started contacting journalists, podcast hosts, and even former cast members who had fallen out with the network. Kirk, who had always been the more stoic of the two, was now showing cracks in his armor. Friends reported that he was visibly shaken, spending long nights pacing back and forth in his home, and that he was haunted by the entire situation. Kirk, on the other hand, was rumored to be planning a tell-all interview that would finally reveal everything that had gone wrong during his time on the show. The network accused Kirk of defamation, wrongful termination, and emotional distress. Rashida, meanwhile, was caught in an emotional whirlwind. She had always been Kirk's biggest supporter, but now she found herself torn between loyalty to her husband and the reality of their situation. On the one hand, she wanted to be there for Kirk to help him through the chaos, but on the other hand, she couldn't ignore the truth that was coming to light. She couldn't pretend that everything was fine as it became evident that Kirk had been duped by the same people who had once praised him for his dramatic storylines. According to reports, Rashida had contemplated leaving the world of love and hip-hop because of the stress of the situation and the constant public scrutiny. Insiders said that Rashida was thinking about changing careers, possibly starting her own company or pursuing music on her own. One source stated that she doesn't want to be associated with the drama any longer because it's just too much, but the real storm was brewing between Mendeecees and Yandy. Their relationship had always been an up-and-down roller coaster, and downs, but now that their futures are uncertain and the media is circling them, the tension was evident. According to an insider, it's not just about the show anymore. It's about the family, the kids, their future. She's stuck in the middle, and it's tearing her apart. Menk, unbothered by the strain in his personal life. Sources claim that Yandy, once a strong advocate for men, was reeling from the betrayal she felt. She's always had his back, but now it feels like he's dragging her down with him. That while Mendeecees were planning his next move, Kirk was quietly re-establishing his network of allies. Former cast members who had fallen out with the show were reaching out to offer their support, sharing their stories of exploitation and mistreatment. Some even suggested that Kirk and Mendeecees weren't the only ones who had been manipulated. He expressed that he was more focused than ever on his legal battle and his plans to expose the reality tape machine. He's on a mission, a friend said. One former cast member, who wished to remain anonymous, told a well-known blog, "Kirk and Mendy are the first to really fight back. They're doing what a lot of us wanted to do, but we were too scared." The network doesn't just control your story. They control your career. Speak out and you're done. Now that Kirk and Mendeecees were leading the charge, the floodgates were opening. However, as the conflict continued, the network was doing. Public relations teams did everything in their power to stifle the expanding narrative. They disseminated counter-narratives, portraying Kirk and Mendeecees as bitter, disgruntled former stars who couldn't accept that their time had passed. The public didn't buy it. In fact, the more the network resisted, the more supporters gathered behind Kirk and Mendeecees. The hashtag #ExposeArea reality gained popularity as viewers demanded transparency and accountability on social media. Media influencers joined the discussion, telling fans that it was time to demand better treatment and to stop the exploitation of reality TV stars. One well-known influencer wrote, "These shows make millions off our pain, and we've had enough." The future of love, hip-hop, and reality TV in general hung in the balance as Kirk and Mendeecees' battle went on. Would they be able to defeat the titans of the business, or was just the start of an even bigger battle? Kirk and Mendeecees' battle escalated, and the drama surrounding their blacklisting reached new heights. It was no longer just about their careers. It was about exposing the dirty secrets of the entire reality TV industry. Both stars have become symbols of resistance, standing up to the system that had profited from their suffering for years. But the stakes were rising, and every move they made seemed to attract more attention from both their enemies and their fans. Behind the scenes, the network was growing desperate because they knew that if Kirk and Mendeecees were successful in exposing the truth, they would be able to change the face of entertainment forever. In an attempt to discredit Kirk and Mendeecees, the network started leaking damaging stories to the press. Tabloids and gossip sites were inundated with claims that both stars were toxic behind the scenes, that they were just trying to stay relevant by stirring up controversy, and that their entire empire would collapse. Their carefully crafted world of scripted drama, larger-than-life personalities, and staged conflict would come crashing down. The repercussions could be disastrous not only for the network, but for the entire reality TV genre. The more the network tried to silence Kirk and Mindy, the more they felt empowered to speak out. Kirk in particular became a vocal advocate for the truth and started using his social media platforms to share his side of the story, posting behind-the-scenes footage of his time on Love and Hip Hop as well. Dirty pulled out all the stops to protect their brand and maintain their control over the reality tape machine, but Kirk and Mindy weren't backing down. On the contrary, the attacks only strengthened their resolve because they knew the network was on the right track. We weren't just playing characters, we were being controlled. They told us what to say, who to fight with, who to love, and who to hate. However, when the camera stopped rolling, they revealed never-before-seen messages between him and the producers. The footage was raw and unfiltered and showed the side of the industry that fans had never seen before. It was a glimpse into the manipulation, the scripted drama, and the emotional toll that reality TV stars were forced to endure. The video went viral fast, and fans flooded the comments section in favor of Kirk. "I always suspected something was wrong with reality TV," and one fan wrote, "Thank you for speaking out. We deserve to know the truth. They no longer cared about us. They used us, and now they're attempting to erase us." The response to Kirk's tweet was tremendous as others shared their personal accounts of how reality TV had affected their lives, with many admitting that they had also been influenced by the media. It was evident that Kirk's message was striking a chord with viewers who had long been wary of reality TV's manufactured nature, but were unwilling to abandon their narrative. They responded with a barrage of counterattacks, arguing that Kirk's revelations were nothing more than a last-ditch effort to remain relevant after his show was canceled. Meanwhile, Mendeecees was adopting a different strategy, with Kirk concentrating on using social media to expose the network's corruption, while Mendeecees was pursuing a more. According to sources close to Mendeecees, he was especially focused on the financial side of things. He wanted to demonstrate how the network makes money off the suffering and trauma of its stars. As part of a well-thought-out plan, he had secretly started working with a group of investigative journalists in the hopes of finding even more damning evidence that would finally force the network to face the truth. One insider shared, "He's not just interested in telling his story. He wants to expose the business behind the scenes he believes." "I've seen it all," the producer said in an exclusive interview. "I was there when the show started, and I watched as it changed from something real into something fake. If people knew how much money they were making off of these made-up storylines, they would realize just how corrupt the system really is." In the middle of their battle, Kirk and Mendeecees received an unexpected ally in the form of a former producer who had worked with them on Love and Hip Hop. The producer had recently left the show and reached out to both stars, offering to provide insider information that could aid them in their battle. For years, fans had conjectured about the legitimacy of reality TV, but was the first time someone with inside knowledge had validated their suspicions. The producer went on to explain how the network created drama by manipulating cast members' relationships, fabricating storylines, and even staging fights because they knew what worked and what the audience wanted to see. "I'll tell you now, everything you've seen on that show was scripted. Every argument, breakup, and fight was prepared, and they gave it to them, but the cast members were left to pick up the pieces. We were all just pawns in the game." The producer's interview was a game changer, giving Kirk and Mendeecees even more motivation to keep fighting, and it further fueled the controversy that surrounded the network. Desperate to contain the damage, The network tried to silence the producer by threatening legal action, but it was too late. The secret was out. As Kirk and Mindy continued to move forward, they found themselves growing more and more distant from their former peers, many of their old friends in the industry who had been eager to ride the wave of. The reality TV stars started to distance themselves from the pair. Some were scared of being linked to the scandal, while others just didn't want to jeopardize their careers by speaking out. However, Kirk and Mindy weren't going to back down. They had already come this far and knew they had the truth on their side, and they were determined to make sure it came to light with their next move. The stakes were higher than ever, and Kirk was getting ready for a high-profile interview with a well-known news outlet where he planned to reveal even more explosive details about his time on Love and Hip-Hop NVCS. Meanwhile, Mindy was putting the finishing touches on his legal case in the hopes of finally receiving the justice he felt he deserved. In the meantime, the network was in full damage control mode, attempting to control the narrative and stop any more leaks from happening. But it seemed like their hold on the situation was slipping with every day. It was evident that the reality of the TIG world would never be the same again because the truth had been revealed, and Kirk and Mindy were at the center of it all. As they continued to fight the reality TIG empire, the pressure was mounting, and each step they took seemed to bring them closer to the truth, but also, as the two stars were called to appear before a private panel of industry executives, which included high-ranking network members, the tension between Kirk and the network reached a boiling point. The network, now desperate to protect its brand, was doing everything in its power to try to bury the scandal, but the duo remained steadfast in their determination to expose the truth about the exploitation of reality TV stars. Kirk and Mindy were CC'd to back down and end their crusade. It was a meeting that both men dreaded but knew they had to attend. The stakes were higher than ever. When Kirk and Mintz entered the room, they were greeted by a cold, professional atmosphere. The executives sat behind a long, polished table, their faces unreadable and stoic. At the head of the table was a familiar face, the showrunner of Love and Hip Hop, who had played a significant role in their ascent to fame and was now a crucial part of their downfall. "Gentlemen," the showrunner started off with a smooth but hint of, "But what you're doing isn't right. You're not just manipulating the audience, you're manipulating us, and you're making money off our pain," said the man who had been quieter throughout the meeting. Underly tense, "We've been paying close attention to what you've said, and we understand your frustrations. We know that reality TV can be difficult, but it's important to remember that this is a business, and we need you to understand that the network's interests come first." The showrunner's expression stayed the same, but it was obvious that he was growing frustrated because it was getting out of control. "You both have been a part of something much bigger than yourselves. You owe your careers to this show, and now you want to throw it all away. We don't owe you anything," he said in a firm and determined voice. "You've been controlling us for years, and we're done with it. We want the world to know what's really been going on behind the scenes." Kirk retorted, "You built us up, you used us." Kirk's eyes narrowed, and the meeting ended without a resolution. Kirk and Mindy left the room knowing that the battle was far from over, but the network had clarified it, that they were willing to do whatever it took to protect their brand. "Then you tore us down, and now you want to erase us. Well, we're not going quietly, we're telling the truth." The showrunner's face darkened, and he leaned forward slightly. "You think you can take down the entire network, but you're delusional if so." The network wasn't keeping quiet either. They had started a media campaign to disparage the two celebrities, calling them ungrateful and envious of their success. The smear campaign appeared to be effective, at least as fans and industry insiders continued to weigh in on the scandal. With the hashtag #FreeTheKing still trending and every new post from Kirk and Mindy seeming to garner even more attention, Mindy's were equally determined to bring the truth back into the public eye, no matter the cost. Some viewers first turned against Kirk and Mendeecees, accusing them of attempting to ruin the reality TV business out of retaliation because they wouldn't exist without the show. One comment said, "Now they're just bitter." However, Kirk and Mendeecees weren't letting the criticism deter them. Instead, they intensified their efforts to reveal the truth about Mendeecees, and he began providing additional evidence with a cool-headed and collected demeanor. The stakes couldn't have been higher as Kirk prepared for a high-profile live interview in which he planned to take on the network's executives head-on. If he could expose the truth, it would be a game-changer not only for him and Mendeecees but for the entire reality TV industry. Behind-the-scenes footage, emails, and text messages revealed just how far the network had gone to manipulate their storylines and exploit their personal lives for profit. The network was desperately trying to find a way to stop the interview from happening, even offering Kirk a sizable sum of money in exchange for his silence, but Kirk refused to be swayed. He said in a statement, "I'm not doing this for the money," and the network was holding its breath as Kirk took his seat on stage. The air was heavy with anticipation as the host, a renowned journalist, asked Kirk the first question in a polite but probing tone. Kirk has been outspoken about the exploitation of reality TV stars. Could you elaborate on what's been going on behind the scenes? Kirk's response was powerful as he began to recount the events that led to his decision to speak out. He discussed the network's manipulation, emotional toll, and control over his life. His words were unfiltered and raw, and the audience listened intently, hanging on every word. Kirk explained that it's not just about the drama. It's about how they used us to make money. They didn't care about our well-being. They only cared about ratings. As the interview came to an end, the host thanked Kirk for his courage, but the battle was far from over. Kirk and Mendeecees had become symbols of resistance in an industry based on exploitation. Their fight was not just for their redemption, but also for the truth to be heard and for future generations of reality stars to know they wouldn't be silenced by the network. This interview became a defining moment in Kirk and Mendeecees' fight for the truth. It was no longer just about them. It was about the entire reality TV industry. As the drama unfolds, it is unclear whether Kirk and Mendeecees will be able to regain control of the narrative or if they change the game forever. Will they be able to reclaim their careers and expose the truth, or will the network succeed in silencing them once and for all? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: this story isn't over yet. We would like to hear your thoughts on the shocking events that have transpired. Do you think Kirk and Mendeecees are acting appropriately by speaking up, or do you think they're just creating chaos for their own benefit? Tell us in the comments section below. If you like this dramatic turn in reality TV, don't forget to hit the bell icon to ensure you never miss a new video and to subscribe to our channel for more exciting updates. Stay tuned as we bring you the most recent information on Kirk Mendeecees and all the behind-the-scenes drama and reality TV. We appreciate your support and will continue to provide you with the stories you're craving. Be sure to show your friends this video, and let's start a discussion. See you later. Duration.